Hi everyone, Effie here. Today I am going to introduce to you our new 6x8 Mermaid Vibe set. This is such a fun set because it has some really pretty mermaid images. You have different mermaids in different poses with different hairstyles, and then you have a bunch of different flora and fauna that you can create really great underwater scenes with, and it's just a really fun set, and I was so excited to release this. So let's get started on my card. I start off by stamping all of the different elements on regular cardstock with our Noir dye ink, and then I'm just going to go ahead and color in all my images with Zig markers. Now I'm not going to do too much intricate blending or shading because the images aren't that big, so you don't need to get that detailed with them. For all of my coloring today, I'm using Zig Clean Color Real Brush Tip markers, which are great for coloring in smaller images because the brush tip has a fine point, so it lets you get into those smaller areas with finer detail. So I'm just going to turn on music while I finish coloring, and I will be back in a bit. After I colored in all of the images, I cut everything out using an electronic cutting machine because coordinating dies are not available just yet, but they will be available starting sometime next week, most likely later next week. So stay tuned for the dye announcement or dye release announcement on our social media platforms. So after I've put all of our cut images aside, I'm going to get started on watercoloring my scene. I have an A2 size watercolor panel, and I'm just going to color on the sandy portion of my scene using Zig markers. After that bottom portion was completed, I took the wave or the ripples stamp from our Mermaid Vibe set, and I colored it in with a cobalt blue Zig marker. And then after I colored in the stamp, I spritz it with just a tiny bit of water, and then I stamped it onto our watercolor panel. Now I didn't recolor the image, I just kind of re-spritzed it with water to activate more of that color, and you get that really nice gradient effect as you go from the top of the panel to the bottom portion of the panel. Once I've set the scene on the watercolor panel, I started stamping all the different flora and fauna in different shades of green and gray inks in our Couture color collections. Now, as I said, this set is so much fun to stamp with because you have different elements such as the mermaid silhouettes, you have fish silhouettes, and then you also have uh, jellyfish that you can stamp, which I thought was really, really fun. So after I've stamped some of the elements, I continued to stamp some more of the underwater foliage with our Lofty Mint dye ink, which gives it a more subtle feel, but it gives you more of that interest because they're not overpowering the card. So after I finish stamping all of the foliage, I went ahead and stamped the Sending Mermaid Vibes sentiment with our Noir dye ink. I really love the sentiment because it's very versatile, and who doesn't love mermaids, especially during this summer season? Once I had my underwater scene stamped and watercolored, I started adhering all of those cut pieces using dimensional foam tape. For the rock, I use a single layer of foam tape, and then for my mermaid, the portions of the mermaid that were on the rock, I used a single layer of foam tape, but any portion of the mermaid that was off the rock, I used a double layer of foam tape to make sure that she was nice and even on my card panel. And then I started to adhere all the different fish and coral and starfish with a single layer of foam tape, and I pop them all up, and it gives a really nice dimensional look for my underwater scene. Next, I took 2 strips of our Glossy Fine Gold Glitter Adhesive paper, and I adhered them onto the 2 edges of my side-folding A2 size card base. Next, I cut strips from our double-sided adhesive sheet, and I'm going to apply these strips behind my watercolor panel, and I'm using this adhesive because it's super strong adhesive that's really great for holding down your watercolor paper to your card bases. So after I adhered the strips off, I took the protective backing off and then adhered that panel right onto my card base, and the card is now complete. I had so much fun creating this card. It's a really fun underwater scene with the pretty mermaids and the really cute fish. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. I'll be back soon featuring this set some more. So I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!